Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Taylor Tuesday. I'm flying without my wingman today, Dr. King, so I'm going to go solo, so I hope everybody will bear with me. Hope everybody's having a great week. We're really excited about tonight's presentation. This has been a long time in the making. I actually got introduced to these guys through Dr. Kunkel, who's going to be speaking. And I met Dr. Kunkel through one of our own, Patrick DeHeer, and it's just been great. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Taylor, and then I'm going to turn it over to these guys. And, you know, I was telling everybody, and, you know, we started this back when COVID started. And, you know, we weren't looking really to do this as something that was to monetize. We were looking to give back to the community. You know, podiatrists have always been really close-knit, and we wanted to do something to help people come out of their practices and come out of everything that was going on and come out on the right side. So we started doing this every week back in March. We've now changed to twice a month. We call it Taylor Tuesdays, and it's really been very successful. We've got a good group of core people who keep watching. Every time we get new people coming on with new companies, we get new people attending. I'm really, really excited about the people we have on tonight. For those of you who want to watch this again or show your staff or missed some of it, you know that you can always go to our portal. Every one of these webinars is actually recorded. Visit our website at www.taylormedical.com. Look for webinars in the upper right-hand corner, and all of the webinars are archived. You can see anything that you want that we've done over the last year and a half. You know, medicine is different, and I know Dr. Kunkel can agree with me from the standpoint of ordering and getting supplies and getting things done. The world is very, very different. What we do at Taylor is we do a free cost analysis. I like to say we do apples to apples, apples to oranges. You know, if you give us the products that you use, we'll tell you what the cost is. If we have alternative vendors that supply great quality products that'll help you get good outcomes, we'll let you know. But I will tell you that we're not just about getting you the best price. We're also about getting you education. You know, like this program tonight, we're introducing a new vendor, a new company that has a product that is going to help benefit our patients. And that's really what the goal of Taylor is about. Make your practices better and get great outcomes to your patients. So tonight, I'm very excited. I have 3 attendees. The company is called Replay. They just recently joined the Taylor family. I've got Dr. Sanford Kunkel. He's considered an expert in his field and was the team physician for the Indiana Pacers, Indiana Fever, USA Basketball, DePaul University, and Brebeuf Jesuit Preparatory School. He's been practicing physician at Ortho Indy for over 30 years, and Ortho Indy is one of the largest orthopedic practices in the world. Dr. Kunkel consults for several healthcare companies and has developed several successful products on his own. He earned his bachelor's degree from Indiana University and his medical degree from Indiana University School of Medicine, internship at St. Mary's in Michigan. God, he was everywhere. And his residency in Grand Rapids Orthopedic Surgery and Blodgett Memorial Center. His fellowship was in sports medicine at the University of Toronto and at the University of Western Ontario, and he's board certified by the American Board of Orthopedics. We have Al Harrington, 16-year NBA veteran, guest patient here. He was selected 25th overall pick in the 1998 draft. Al played for 16 seasons in the National Basketball Association for the Indiana Pacers, the Atlanta Hawks, the Golden State Warriors, the New York Knicks, the Denver Nuggets, the Orlando Magic, and the Washington Wizards. He also did a short stint with the Fijian Sturgeons of the Chinese Basketball Association. Since retiring from the NBA, Harrington has become an entrepreneur in the cannabis industry. And I know a lot of you know me, but I am really good at pronouncing names. I couldn't do this when I had to ask him first. I hope I don't make a mistake now. But I have Aras Azadian. I hope I was close. He's the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder, utilizing his extensive senior management experience in both financial and biotechnology sectors. Aras co-founded never mind. He'll tell you later. With the vision of establishing a pharmaceutical company with a strict focus on medical and pharmaceutical applications of cannabinoids. His expertise in corporate development, coupled with his executive experience in the oncology industry, have been integral to Avicanna's thought leadership pertaining to R&D and clinical development. Since 2016, Aras has successfully led a team of executives, scientists, and medical professionals across several countries with a vision of vertical integration and a strong company focus on quality controls, scientific vigor, and competitive advantages. Aras holds a Bachelor of Economics degree from from York University, and an international master's in management degree from EADA Business School in Barcelona, Spain. Gentlemen, I'm going to turn it over to the replay. I'm going to get off here. People will ask questions, and it'll be in the chat box. And when you guys are done, I'll come back on and moderate Q&A. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Okay, this is my first webinar on this format, so I don't know if does this allow people to ask questions interactively?
So it will not have anybody, it doesn't allow anybody to talk, Sanford, but there'll be questions. I can tell you that I already got my first comment that says, "Hoosiers in the house," with 3 exclamation marks. So I'm already seeing everything. If you want me to stop, I can, but if not, I usually just read the questions at the end from all the participants and moderate.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll start with the first slide here. This is interesting. I haven't ever really given a lecture to a iPad before, but we were originally going to do just a fireside chat, and I thought I really want to do a little background on the science of the plant, primarily because I'm very certain. I have two children that are doctors, and I've questioned them and their colleagues, and as of today, I don't believe anyone gets any education on this plant in medical training. So I don't know about the podiatry world, but certainly not in the MD world. So I want to give the audience a basis of information. So if and when they do prescribe this cream or any CBD products, or even cannabis products for that matter, they have an understanding of the plant and the science and the background. So just looking at this in general, the kingdom of cannabis is the plant kingdom. The family is Cannabinaceae. It's the hemp family. Cannabis L, which is one of the dimers, is considered hemp. And then the species is marijuana, and the subspecies are sativa. So there's a lot of talk about, and again, I'm going to go back and forth between cannabis and CBD, but there's a lot of talk about sativa versus indica. And I think when I was younger, there was a big distinction. I think there's less so now than there used to be. This part of this slide is blocked by our images, but if you look at the cannabis plant, it's been long known, and I've got some slides in this, that hemp fiber is very, very valuable, has been very, very valuable. In fact, before World War II, it was used for textiles, it was used for clothing, it was used for building blocks, it was rope. It was a huge, huge part of our manufacturing until it was made illegal. And you can see what I've put on here. We still sell hemp seed oil. It's really high in omega-3s and 6s. The leaves are used for vegetables, juice, medicine, and drugs, which we'll talk about in a minute. The plants are bred to either produce higher or lower levels of THC and cannabinoids. Hemp plant in general has very low content of cannabinoids. The male plant, if you remember your botany, has a staminate, and the female plant has a distillate, and there's a reason why we want to know that, and primarily because what we want out of the plant is from the female when we talk about medicines. The female plants produce the cannabinoids, terpenes. These are secreted by the glandula on the trichomes, and you can see in this picture the real shiny little balls on the leaves are the trichomes. When we talk about marijuana, that is primarily made from the dried flower buds, and the resin from that is where we get hashish. Cannabis, when we talk about cannabis and THC, it has a triphasic psychiatric effect. And again, I'm delving into cannabis here because there are a lot of medicinal applications for cannabis. They may not be legal today, but if you're young enough, they'll be legal in your practice. So I want to go over these things. The first stage is relaxation and euphoria. The second phase is philosophical thinking, introspection, metacognition, anxiety, paranoia. The last is increased heart rate and hunger. And the active ingredient here is 11-hydroxy-THC. That's created, I'll show that in a minute, by heating the delta-9 molecule. It's the psychoactive metabolite of THC. Just going back to 2 here real quick, you know, people see anxiety, paranoia, those kinds of things. A lot of that has to do with the content of the type of cannabinoids in the cannabis itself. And so in today's world, and maybe Al can speak to that, a lot of the growers are able to control what amounts are in the flower and subsequently what kind of an effect you get. In contradistinction, as we know, CBD has no psychoactive effects, but due to something called the entourage effect, along with terpenes, it can actually decrease some of the anxiety that might be caused by the THC in cannabis. Again, delta-9 THC is converted with heat to 11-hydroxy-THC and ultimately excreted from the body in a molecule called glucuronide. Important here, and this is something that you should know as a practitioner if you're prescribing or recommending CBD. CBD and the other cannabinoids may inhibit the activity of cytochrome P450, also known as CYP. The reason why this is important is it's part of the family of liver enzymes, and it's a key enzyme that metabolizes most of the drugs that we consume, or greater than 60% of those. And in particular, if you have a patient or a friend or relative that wants to know about CBD, before you say, well, go ahead, there's no issue with it, it can affect warfarin, which, as you know, is Coumadin, which is a blood thinner, and actually some of the other blood thinners. It can interact with some chemotherapy, and it can also interact with some seizure medications. So when talking to your friends, your patients, your family about this, make sure you know what medications they're taking, because it does interfere with the CYP drugs in the liver. CBD is, which is probably new to most of you, was not just founded. It was founded in the 1940s. In fact, has been talked about for hundreds, if not thousands of years. The stem cell is CBDA, added heat, it gives you CBD. There are 2 endogenous cannabinoids, and I want to make a distinction here between the endogenous cannabinoids, which are the cannabinoids that you make in your body. Anandamide is probably the most famous one, or most talked about. That means bliss. And 2-AG is the other endogenous cannabinoid. And that's in distinction to the phytocannabinoids, which are plant-based. The CBD stimulates CB2 receptors. These are non-psychoactive receptors. And this is very important to us as practitioners. Why do we use CBD? Because it moderates inflammatory responses, pain control, and can even limit fibrosis. So clearly, most of what we see, pain-related things, are inflammatory. Obviously, pain control is a secondary thing. And if you have a surgical patient or a post-traumatic patient, it can limit fibrosis, which, as you know, in podiatry and orthopedics, can lead to some disastrous results if you have too much fibrous tissue. Again, THC stimulates CB1 receptors, and most of those are primarily in the brain and the central nervous system, whereas CBD stimulates the CB2 receptors, which are, again, primarily the immune system in the body. And this is a pretty small diagram of this. I think I've got another one that's a little bit more clear. Again, the cannabinoids from the cannabis plant are called phytocannabinoids versus the endocannabinoids, and there are 2 of those that we know of, anandamide and 2-AG. This is a little bit easier to see the CB1 and CB2 receptors. CB2, you can see the lighter blue and centralized primarily in the brain, the central nervous system. I'm sorry, yeah, I got that wrong. CB1 is the brain, CB2 is the remainder of your immune system. So actually THC can stimulate CB1 and 2 receptors, CBD primarily 2s. Again, there's a CBG stem cell, and I think Aras is going to talk about this a little bit with his company and his product. This is considered a stem cell for all the cannabinoids, specifically the most well-known are THC and CBD. There's a lot of question about how much should I take, how often should I take, how much is too much. The absorption rate for most cannabinoids is about, as you would imagine, 100% IV. It's about 90% if it's inhaled, or roughly 90, somewhere between 70 and 90%. Sublingual, probably closer to 20%. That would be your tinctures. And gummies and other ingestibles, perhaps 5%. Transdermal, I don't really have any great information of that. Haven't been able to find that. Maybe Aras has some of that. So when we prescribe this, we typically say start low and go slow. Typically, the transdermal application does not give you much, if any, a systemic effect. So we feel like we can go pretty fast with that. So we're supposed to switch this. The cannabis plant has greater than 144 cannabinoids. The most commonly known are THC and CBD. We also have CBN, CBG, CBD. What's exciting about this is there's a lot of research going on in the plant now, and it's really haven't had any research since about 1937 when it was made illegal. But what we're finding is some of these smaller cannabinoids, although they're in really small amounts in the plant, can have dramatic effects on anxiety, depression, and even weight loss, which would be incredible. So you'll find a lot of research. If you do this, you'll find a lot of research being done on some of the lesser known cannabinoids. So as I mentioned, this is not a new chemical. It's not a new discovery. In the 1920s, there were over 3 million scripts for cannabis written in the United States alone. In the 30s, farmers sold cannabis extract as medicine. In 1937, there were 28 over-the-counter preps. I'll show you, you can all read this, but this is interesting. I saw this at a meeting that I went to a couple years ago. Medical marijuana before Prohibition, which was 1937. Cannabis was listed as one of the top 50 fundamental herbs of traditional Chinese medicine. The plant was first introduced in the Western medicine in the mid-1800s by Dr. William O'Shaughnessy after observing it in India. So you can see the advertisement there. So this is not new by any means. These are a few labels from Eli Lilly, which is a company based in Indianapolis, one of probably the largest 5 or so pharmaceutical companies in the world. And you can see the timestamp on this, so October 11, 1913. This is for, as you read this in the parentheses, cannabis sativa, American grown. This is another one. It's not dated, but again, it's cannabis sativa, physiologically tested. There's another one from, I'm not sure I can read what company. It's clearly, and it's interesting, this is cannabis indica versus sativa, but they're both sativa species. And this is one more by Mulford, which was actually a fairly famous and well-known company back just after the turn of the century. So marijuana was outlawed and this is not quite the proper spelling. There are about 4 different spellings for marijuana. A Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. It changed everything. As we mentioned earlier, there were a lot of uses for hemp in the industrial world. There were a lot of uses for cannabis in the medical world. And our government decided in 1937 that it should be outlawed, and it was part of the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. So since 1937, it's been illegal to grow hemp in this country. Subsequently, the research has gone to virtually zero. Most of the research done on the plant was done in the 1960s by Dr. Raphael Mechoulam, who's considered the godfather of marijuana. And we'll talk a little bit more about him in a minute. But as you can imagine, the Farm Bill of 2018 re-legalized hemp. So for almost 90 years, we were unable to do any research on the plant in this country, and this country leads a lot of the research in the world. So you can see we're just now playing catch up with the plant itself. 1942, American chemist Roger Adams discovered CBD molecule. In 1964, as I mentioned, Dr. Raphael Mechoulam identified the stereochemistry of CBD. So this is interesting. I listened to him speak, and when he did his research in the 60s, cannabis was illegal in Israel. He got some funding, and he more or less did this, behind the curtain, knowing how important it was, even though it was illegal. But he persisted, and he continues to persist. So CBD stands for cannabidiol. We talked about there are 2 cannabinoid receptors in the body. This is important for you to know as practitioners. CB1 is primarily in the brain and central nervous system, which is influenced primarily by THC. CB2 receptors in the immune system, and that's primarily influenced by CBD. And these are the receptors of the endocannabinoid system. Now, the phytocannabinoids, which we get from the plant, also stimulate these receptors. So we can augment what our bodies do. Again, THC attaches to CB1 receptors in the brain. Its effects affects your coordination, your movement, your pain, your mood, your appetite. Interestingly, there are no CB1 receptors in the medulla oblongata. And I don't know if you all remember what that does, but that affects your respiratory rate. So far as I know, far as I've read, far as I've heard, there have never been any deaths from an overdose of THC. And it's primarily because alcohol and the opioids affect your medulla, which subsequently affect your respiratory rate, and that's what kills you. CBD attaches, again, to the CB2 receptors. There are a lot of studies that have begun since 2018, primarily looking at some primates and lab rats and mice, but you can see CBD uses systemic reduction of inflammation. This is really the mechanism as physicians that we want to understand. We use it for inflammation and subsequently for pain control because of this mechanism. There are companies that are looking at it for acne, type 1 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, anti-cancer. There are other studies, and they're pretty good studies that are not terribly powered yet, but they're continuing to be done right now for anxiety, PTSD, depression, and addiction. And some of you may have read about these, but they're very interesting how there are clinicians out there that are using CBD to wean people off of opioids, alcohol, to wean them off of their antidepressants, and used for PTSD. So it's pretty promising. The future looks great. There's just more to learn. It's a little bit like our vaccines these days, where these vaccines were issued an EUA, emergency use application, because we couldn't do these lengthy trials because too many people were dying from the COVID. Well, it's a little bit like the CBD research right now. We just need more time, more people, more studies, but it's very encouraging. Again, this just shows some of the locations and some of the applications of CBD and THC. And I want to throw this out real quick too. My personal opinion is that we're going to migrate at some point in time to a combination, a ratio of CBD to THC, which is going to give us the best effect on the human maladies that we want to treat this with. It's not, in my opinion, it's probably not going to be purely CBD or THC, but a combination thereof. And I'm not sure what that ratio is. It may be 3-to-1 CBD to THC. It may be higher, it may be lower, but there's clearly a synergistic effect. We call it an entourage effect, which also includes flavonoids and terpenes, primarily terpenes, but they do act synergistically. And CBD can also decrease some of the effects of THC that we don't like. So they do work better in combination. So again, in 2018, the Farm Bill was passed, thanks primarily to the people in Kentucky and McConnell, who's their senator, because hemp was a huge product in Kentucky prior to the Marijuana Tax Act. And when the farmers in Kentucky lost their livelihood growing tobacco, he realized that they really would benefit greatly from having hemp legalized. So he pushed this through. He was one of the people that pushed this through. And now virtually every state, it's legal to grow hemp. I'm sorry, federally it's legal. State by state, it varies. And you need to understand that. And I'll mention a little bit more about that in a minute. We know CBD's been removed from the WADA, or World Doping Agency, list of drugs that are prohibited, which would primarily be our Olympic athletes. I was going to ask Al this, and he can mention this, but from what I recall, the NHL is no longer testing for cannabinoids. I'm not sure. I think baseball may not be. And I'm not sure that I know the NBA's changed their policy. I'm not sure about the NFL. But clearly it's been more understanding, more an acceptance of this medication. The reason why I wanted to run this by you is this is kind of exemplifies today's world. A study indicates most patients don't think their doctors will understand cannabis. I think this is probably accurate. I certainly know out of my 70 partners, most of them never have this discussion, never considered an alternative in their treatment regimen, and they probably don't even read about it, that's going to change. And I hope that soon, if not now, that it's in the curriculum of the medical schools and podiatry schools and DO schools. This is a product we're going to talk to you about tonight. One of the things we've decided, at least at this point in time, is to concentrate on the transdermal application of CBD. One of the things the FDA is grappling with right now is how to regulate CBD, and particularly what's ingested. So anything that's drank or put under your tongue or taken by capsule or vaped, the red flags go up with the FDA. So we've tried to avoid that until they make a decision. Honestly, they're kind of kicking the can down the road because the FDA tries to make their decisions based on some really good double-blind studies, and there just aren't enough. And that's just because of the time fact that it's only been legal now for not even 3 years. I think their gut feeling is that this should probably be a supplement. Again, there are no known overdoses. There are occasionally reports of people that might get nausea or maybe a dizziness, but we don't know if that's psychosomatic, if it's placebo effect, or whether it's real. We'll sort that out. We also think that because it's transdermal, it has a very, very low level of systemic concentration. One of the things that really, really interested me about CBD, and I can talk a little bit without Al at the end of this about how we got together, but as I started to learn about the plant, I realized that my arrows in my quiver are pretty limited. I can't really prescribe anything to a patient of mine that doesn't have a side effect of some sort. And nobody comes to see me unless they hurt, because when they stop hurting, they don't come back. And I tell them they don't need to come back. So my office is full of people that have an issue. My armamentarium is, as I said, I've got NSAIDs, I've got opioids, I've got anti-anxiety medications, antidepressants, and we all know these all have tremendous side effects. They all have to be monitored closely. You have to limit that. Now we know with the opioids, it's very, very controlled. So this to me looks like it's just a great alternative. And it may be that we have to adjust the dose. It's not going to be an overnight thing. It might take 6 months to find out how much somebody needs to take. It might be that you have responders and non-responders. But again, the negative effects are so much less and so much better than our other alternatives. I think it needs to be part of our armamentarium. If we look at NSAIDs, which is probably our number one prescribed medication, Tylenol is probably the number one overused medication, but it's not prescription. But NSAIDs are prescription. 50 to 100 per 100,000 people a year have a GI bleed secondary to a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. 195 overdose deaths, consider those overdose. NSAIDs, over 30 million people in this country are taking them a day. 30 to 50% of NSAID users have erosion and ulcers by endoscopic exam. So this is not benign in any way. And we may prescribe this and say, go ahead and take it. This is a recommended daily dosage and don't worry about it. What I typically do is have my patients get their liver and renal functions tested every 3 months if they're on these chronically. But again, there's no free lunch. And these are also, these can cause bleeding disorders. And if you're on an anticoagulant, you can't take an NSAID either, which really limits them. So again, we need more and better alternatives, and I think we have one. Do you, Aras, you want to take over here, or do you want to wait?
Oh yeah, sure, I could.
Yeah, why don't you? I'll introduce you as the CEO of Avocana. So let me say real quickly. So Al introduced us to Avocana, which is a company that we're manufacturing and producing our cream. And the reason why we partnered with them is twofold. One is they're cutting edge. You have great research. But when we did a really nice clinical study with the NBA Players Association, and we provided them with our cream, and it was a fairly small study, but we got really nice results. And one of the things that we did when we approached the NBA is we both agreed we wanted a product that was made by a company, which would be us and Avocana, which is Aras's company, that is actively doing research. And the reason why I say that is there are a lot of companies out there that are selling witch hazel. It's really bad. And you'll see some of the studies where 40, 50, 60% of the companies out there, if they're tested, they have less than or 0% active ingredients. They have all kinds of contaminants. We know that the hemp plant, we consider it a vacuum cleaner. It sucks everything out of the ground. So products need to be tested. They need to be tested before and after, and Aras will talk about that. But so we partnered with Avocana because of their high quality, their research, and they have a great background. So Aras, why don't you take it from there?
Thank you, Doc. Appreciate it. And thanks, Al, and of course, thanks to the team here for inviting us. So maybe I'll just give a quick intro from our perspective as well. We're a Canadian biotech company. Our focus is really on the research and clinical development of cannabinoid-based medicine. And as you guys may know, in Canada, it's federally approved. So we've had the opportunity to work with some of the academic centers that have been named here, including University of Toronto, some of the major hospitals, and some of the technologies that we've developed are now in late stages of clinical development, and some of them are in earlier stages of clinical development, and some of them are actually commercialized in several markets. Our collaboration with Al and the team at Replay was to provide that scientific approach, the evidence-based approach to cannabis-based medicine, in the specific case in the form of transdermal gels. We had developed a base formulation which is stable, making sure that the cannabinoids are integrating, making sure that there's shelf life stability. Also a formulation that ensures the transdermal past the region to get into the joints and muscles for athletes. And Al's vision was really to put out 3 different products that we're going to be introducing today that are tackling 3 different uses. And by doing so, we're combining a water-based gel with quick absorption, very light feel, with other natural excipients that do have specific therapies and specific benefits. I think the product being highlighted here, which is very relevant to the group we're presenting to, is the foot and ankle therapy, in which we're actually combining CBD, which is not only efficacious from an inflammation perspective, which can lead to pain reduction, but also we've seen some of the efficacy in vitro studies we're involved with as to CBD's antimicrobial, antibacterial benefits, which again could have a potential value add in a formulation like this. The formulation is also enhanced with beta carotene, which is actually a terpenoid that comes from the cannabis plant, also an anti-inflammatory. Menthol for a little bit of the warming sensation, and in addition to that, tea tree oil, which is again another known antibacterial. So Again, Al's vision here was a foot and ankle cream for athletes that is going to help with reduction of inflammation pain, but also to support with some of the antibacterial aspects of feet. So the Pro Muscle Rub is a stronger dose. This is for the pros, right? This is a stronger dose of CBD. I think the dose here is actually 2%, so it's relatively higher dose. Thanks to the Farm Bill, the doctor was presenting cannabinoid production in the United States, so we're able to make these products still affordable. Same water-based formulation. Here we've added camphor as well, and beta, again, the terpene from a clove oil, which again has a much more sensation, of course, performing healing of camphor, plus the transdermal of cannabinoids in the form of CBD. The third product is Total Body Recovery. This is, a daily use formulation that could be, again, water-based, very light. It's combining clove oil, cannabinoids, and eucalyptus in this case, which again has some of that anti-inflammatory benefit. Formulation, it can be used for back pain, muscle pains, anything basic recovery. Something that's very interesting, and I think one of the reasons why we're collaborating is, again, the clinical work that we're doing. These formulations are now currently enrolled in a Toronto General Hospital UHN study in Canada, in which we're testing them on chronic pain patients with federal approvals. In addition to that, they're actually enrolled in a preclinical study, animal study currently with osteoarthritis. So we're actually testing the potential efficacy of these formulations. We're ensuring the transdermal delivery and actually measuring, doing some biopsy samples to join as well. So this is really reference to deep tissue technology. We incepted the company in 2015 as a drug development company. We're part of the Johnson & Johnson incubator in Toronto, where our head office, and this is where we developed a lot of this technology. We are looking at various range of cannabinoids. We're permitted to work with THC as well, and we have a number of human studies that are related to THC. As an example, palliative care, or even multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's, that we do need doses of THC. But in the case of the replay technology, we're leveraging off of the benefits of the non-coactive cannabinoids, predominantly focused on CBD, and we're looking to introduce CBG, which was referenced as well earlier in the presentation, as another non-psychoactive cannabinoid. And again, we have CBG enrolled in a number of our osteoarthritis studies, but also looking at skin antimicrobial, antibacterial benefits. Again, the formulations are designed for transdermal delivery, meaning considering the size of cannabinoids as a molecule, you need to ensure that there's enough active, enough of entry barriers to actually enter the skin and get into the joints and muscles. That's very important. Again, referenced earlier, there's a lot of products out in the market today in the United States. Not only are lacking the evidence, the research that we think is essential to provide scientific backed product, but also the products that have gone through the quality standards that a biopharmaceutical company like us and our partners basically would like to see out there. And those quality assurance and quality control aspects are generally absent, considering that the federal regulations around cannabinoids generally, but even specifically with CBD, is not that well defined. So we, in fact, are taking a GMP pharmaceutical approach. We're ensuring products have stability. We're ensuring products have transdermal delivery, and we're ensuring that the products have accurate dosing, which is very important for the patients, for the consumers, and in this case, maybe the athletes. So again, I think we covered some of the research aspects. This was very important for the replay. We're honored to be working with them. Our focus with the replay formulations, the products themselves, obviously around delivering those optimal products we can to the patients and consumers. But we will continue to do the research and provide the evidence. We're looking at consumer data in the United States with replay, but we're also looking at the clinical data that we're published, and we can again reference that information and share that information with the medical community, including the group here. Is this you, Al?
I had to turn off. I got dogs in the background. How everybody doing? Excited to be working with these two fine gentlemen. I feel like we're really going to be able to do something really special. We've been able to, because of my background in the NBA, I've been able to get to the NBPA, which is the National Basketball Players Association, and that's the body that represents all the players as a whole. So when I first started in the cannabis space, I got a chance to sit down with the late, great David Stern and, talk to him about the benefits of cannabis, and especially, for athletes. And, when I first got into the NBA, I was shocked by the cannabis use that I was seeing. But then what I was really shocked about was the guys that were using, how dominant they were on the court. So, a lot of the stigma that, that I was brought up around, I realized was not the truth. And that, cannabis can be used as medicine. And, even from when I first started talking to, Dr. Kunkel, he had already got to the point where, it was something about this plant that he wanted to learn more about. And I was able to, obviously talk him through a lot of the different things that I had learned over, the years. And, this is actually my 10-year anniversary being in the space. So, we're really excited about the partnership with the NBPA. I think that this will spiral us to getting a deal with the actual NBA. Once COVID, calms down, I plan on getting a meeting with Adam Silver to, obviously talk about that. And, our goal is to, have replay in all NBA locker rooms by next season, and hopefully a patch on one of the jerseys in the next 2 years is a goal of mine. So we feel like, this affiliation will definitely help us be able to move product, because it'll give our company and our actual product a lot of credibility, because if the world's greatest athletes are getting benefits and being able to recover faster, we feel like that will definitely have our weekend warriors and, I'm sure a lot of the patients that you guys see on a daily basis comfortable with, trying this product. So we're really excited for the partnership. I don't know, is it another slide? Okay. Yeah. So, so some of the brand ambassadors we have lined up is Allen Iverson. He's going to be the first. When you think about his career, all the injuries he dealt with, how hard he played. And, obviously you would think, him as a 45-year-old man, his body hurts, right? So the products that we've been able to produce, we've been able to, give to him for him to try. One of the things that I have, as a rule of mine, before someone can actually join our company, especially as an ambassador, they have to use the product and they have to believe in the product. I'll just give you my story. I pretty much retired because I couldn't get inflammation out of my right knee. I tried everything. I did stem cell. I did everything under the sun, trying to get that relief, but nothing worked. So it forced me into retirement. But, once I retired, my passion was trying to find something that could help me, be able to cope and have a better quality of life. I have young kids, so, I needed to have that energy and that mobility to, to be able to continue on with my life. And, after a lot of, Doc can attest to this, after a lot of formulations and different things like that, we were able to find something that not only took the inflammation out of my knee, but made my knee feel better, that I was able to go out and play in the, the Big Three, which is a 3-on-3 tournament that Allen Iverson actually had founded as well. And I was able to go out and dominate, and I was able to play pain-free. And, once I dialed in this formulation, I was ready to take it to the world. So we were able to, launch Replay in, very small, small locations around the country. And, like Doc said earlier, we've been able to see a lot of success. We go to the next one. Okay, Raj, you want to go through the products?
Yeah, so I mean, we covered a lot of these products, but this was an older version of the design that we were looking at. We're combining CBD and CBG, and maybe what I can do is I can actually answer the questions that are the product. You guys sort of covers it there. One of them was adding byproduct like camphor, clove, oil, strength, and CBD. Our understanding from the studies we've done is no, but these are in fact that are either designed to enhance absorption or, in fact, to add synergistic value. Another question was, is there other options than ointments, including transdermal patches? I think that's something that the team is looking at. Are you aware of any studies in conjunction with the DMSO? We don't use DMSO as a penetration enhancer. We know that there's potential side effects related to that. We're actually using FDA-approved polymers that create the technology and have natural penetration we can avoid DMSO. I hope this answers some of the questions. And Al, if you'd like to continue this slide, but that is really the old version of the formulations. There are deep tissue gels. Menthol is the second active for the cannabinoids, and then in some cases there's cannabis, there's tea tree oil, etc. Dr. Kunkel, this is your quote.
Yeah, that's kind of an old picture.
A very, very old picture.
You know, I remember, I'm going to tell a little story here, but I remember somewhere in the 20-some years I did the NBA players, there was a fad going on where the players would come in and want a Toradol shot before the games. And one very famous player came in from visiting team and asked for the shot. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't give you shots. I don't give my players shots. In fact, I don't give them opioids. I don't take any risks with these guys. I treat them like family, and sorry. And I realized at that point, you know, I just didn't have any good alternatives. You know, icy hot, sure. Well, what does that do? Stimulate your skin. But we really didn't at that point have anything where I could say, this is going to help you, and I don't have to worry about what it might do to you. And so I think we're past that, which is incredibly exciting to me. And hopefully the people on this webinar tonight feel the same way and have the same results that we've had. But it's just nice to have something that I feel good about, and it's safe, and I don't have to worry that somebody's going to have a drug interaction or a GI bleed or any kind of an adverse reaction.
So I've got a couple of questions here, guys. I've actually got a few. So first of all, thank you guys very, very much for taking the time to be with us tonight and sharing with my colleagues an opportunity to help get their patients better outcomes. So I have a question. It says, fellow Hoosier here, can you speak to the Delta-8 molecule and how it's different from Delta-9?
Aras, you better take that. I know a little, but not as much as you, I'll bet.
Yeah, we don't typically work with Delta-8. I think Delta-8, like Delta-9, is obviously psychoactive, interacts with the CB1 receptor, has very similar sensations as Delta-9. But within the current regulations in the United States, I think the DEA has classified Delta-9 as a controlled substance, but they've sort of missed Delta-8 in the process. So I think there's a little bit of a loophole there from a regulatory perspective. But from an efficacy and side effect perspective, it's quite similar to THC Delta-9 from what I know.
Yeah, let me just add to that. I think there was a period of time when manufacturers realized that the FDA had omitted Delta-8 and Delta-9 was illegal, Delta-8 wasn't. So they were selling Delta-8. And then I think the FDA or the government finally recognized that and threw Delta-8 in with Delta-9 as being illegal. So I would assume, and I think this is probably true, that states where THC is now legal, Delta-8 or Delta-9 would both be legal, but Delta-8 for a period of time was a way to get around those laws until the government realized it and then put those together. As far as the psychoactive and medicinal effects, I don't know that there's a huge difference. Aras, you may know, but I don't know there's a huge difference. I know that there's at least one company I know that's using Delta-8. And I'm not sure what the benefits are, other than I think they're still trying to skirt the law. That's all I can really say about that.
It's also convertible from CBD. So through chemical synthesis, you can actually convert CBD to Delta-8. So I think it's more of a garage-made product sort of strategy rather than an efficacy-related one. So, like, just on that topic, I think it's interesting to look at some of the rare cannabinoids and document some of them. THCV, for example, is a rare cannabinoid that has shown to have potential weight loss and benefits related to any of those types of conditions, including diabetes. CBN is actually hemp-derived CBD can be cured with CBN, and a lot of the myth or the kind of the story is that it's very helpful as a sedative, sleep. CBG is another hemp-derived cannabinoid. And today, we are actually cultivating CBG in a very high expression. So there's a lot of cannabinoids out there, and I think the world of research is just scratching the surface on the potential efficacy of cannabinoids.
So I've got a question, and it's something that I would definitely struggle with, because even when I was back in the day trying to utilize some of this on my patients, I would mention something to them and say, well, I'm not touching that. That's illegal. They get confused with THC versus CBD. How do you explain it to the patient and let them know that they're not doing something wrong, but they're doing something that can help them and is not addictive? That's, especially in my population where they were either young athletes or elder people, they were concerned about the THC versus CBD.
Let me just answer that first. Honestly, Ira, that was the reason for my presentation, so that anybody on this call could begin to understand the difference and then be able to explain those differences to the patients. But you have to have a pretty good basic understanding of the plant to do that. And if you don't, then you might as well not even try to explain it to the patients. But, one of the things I did in my exam rooms was to have tons of diagrams, tons of explanations of things. And if there was an illustration you could put in your room that said, look, here's the plant, these are cannabinoids, the only one that makes you high is THC, the only one that's illegal is this one, the only one that you'll get tested for and probably lose your job is this one. And by the way, most ingestible CBDs are isolates, which means they're 0% THC. By law, if it's less than 0.3% THC, you're probably not going to lose your job or get arrested or whatever the punishment might be. But I would just say that if you want to get into this world, you need to understand the plant so you can explain it well. But I think the most powerful thing you can say is CBD is not psychoactive. It will not make you high, and you'll not flunk your drug test.
So in saying that, does Replay have tools for us for our office? Do you have like those posters that you just talked about, Sanford? Is there something that our colleagues can put in their rooms when somebody signs up to purchase from you? Do you have any educational material that you send to the physician team? I was just wondering, because you kind of led me down that road, and I think that those would be great tools to have for potential users.
But before I answer that, let me say one thing that's important about why Replay is so good is, I would say, and I don't know the statistic exactly, but I would say 90% of the CBD products out there are not tested for pesticides, heavy metals, contaminants, and the THC level. So if you just buy something off the street, or you tell your patient, or you tell your friend, go down there and get it, they're all the same, there's a likelihood they may flunk a drug test because it does have higher THC than it's supposed to. So that's why you have to buy a product. You have to recommend and buy a product from a company that does independent studies of contaminants, heavy metals, all those things, and quantify the concentrations of your CBD and other cannabinoids. To answer your question, I don't know that we have anything pre-made, but I bet we could get something together really fast for your doctors.
I mean, we do a lot of this. Just to add, I mean, part of the manufacturing process, Dr. Kunkel, as you mentioned, is to ensure that not only are the CBD content accurate, there's zero THC, because that's very important for us. We're selling these products at a national level. This isn't a dispensary state level project. So this is national. We will do the testing. We're working with validated methodologies. And as for the education and training content, we have a lot of this information available. We're working with several vendors of that stuff. So we will be working together, put together the materials to be able to present to the physicians, for them to be able to present to patients. One note I'd like to add, if I may, I would say, and I'll probably agree with me, the stigma of cannabis 5-6 years ago was a lot higher than it is today. And that was the initial challenge for a pioneer like him and for us to pioneer sort of the research side. Today, the stigma is people are using poor quality products. And that's the challenge. They're using products that aren't manufactured properly, that aren't designed actually to have the effect that might be efficacious. So I agree with theme here. I think it's very important to let also your consumers and your patients know that not every product is the same, and want that quality standard in place.
So I just wanted to chime in. Mark is part of the Replay team. Told me that they have a number of marketing and educational tools for our members. So I think that's great that not only do you guys have a product that is going to get us great outcomes for our patients, but you also educate our physicians and our staff on how we could explain everything to the patients. So I know we're running it close to the end of time, but I'm curious. The CBD, one of the questions I got, and it kind of piqued my interest, does it perform differently on our different age demographics, like kids versus, our weekend warriors and versus our seniors? Do we see a different response time with the products?
I could answer that. Aras, do you have any clinical information on that?
We haven't seen a lot of diversity, especially with something transdermal. You're going to have diversity from a genetics perspective as to the amount of drug delivery past, the skin membrane into the joints and muscle. But as the doc mentioned earlier, you're not getting a lot of systemic absorption where you would get a little bit more diversity again from a mechanistic perspective. So we're not seeing a wide range of diversity.
I agree with that. And I'll say something else that I didn't mention in my early talk, but the endocannabinoid system has been present in humans for thousands of years. It's an old nervous system that runs. They consider it the master system, and it oversees all the other nervous systems, but it runs sort of in parallel with maybe opioid receptors and that kind of thing. So intuitively, I would say that children and adults are probably not that much different. I think the challenge for us, transdermal, is easy, but when we get into ingestibles, it's all about getting it absorbed. There's absorption and there's cellular level and a lot of other things. But bottom line is it's not easy to get across the membrane in the intestine. So transdermal is easy. We say start low, go slow, work your way up, check for adverse effects. Transdermal, quite honestly, we don't even think about it. Ingestibles is probably a little bit different.
Just that, I know that Al was talking about how he had to retire because he had so much pain, and then he started using the products and was able to come back and perform better. How quickly would we see our patients responding if CBD is going to be working for them? What time frame would we see any type of relief for our patients?
I can't answer that directly, but what I can tell you is when we did our study with the NBA players, they were retired players. My guess when we started the study was that those people with more arthritis in their knees would respond less, and it was the opposite, which was shocking. So I guess one of the take-home points here might be it's never too late to try it. But intuitively you would say, well, the more severe the problem is, the more chronic it is, the longer it might take to get better, the higher dose you might need. And that, I would probably say in general, that's true.
Great. Well, we've reached the end of the hour. Before I say goodnight to everybody and give them some parting remarks, Dr. Kunkel, Aras, do you guys have any closing comments that you'd like to make?
I would just say thank you for your time. I hope this helped. Again, I think the basic science is really important for practitioners to understand. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend this. Most of your colleagues don't understand the plant, and I think that's to the patient's detriment. And I think you could separate yourself and be a better practitioner if you understand it and actually try it. So that would be my message. But thanks for your time.
Thanks. Al, any closing comments?
Yeah, same thing. I would just like to thank everybody for their time. This is amazing. Really educate yourself around this plant. To me, it's the most dynamic plant in the world. Obviously on the CBD side, from a medicinal standpoint, But even on the THC side, you know, I really believe that this plant can really heal the world. You know what I'm saying? If everybody has some form of a cannabis diet. So really excited to potentially work with all of you guys. Any information you guys need, definitely reach out. We have it. And just excited to, you know, work with everyone here.
Well, again, thanks for having us. I want to thank everybody for joining us on Taylor Tuesday. I will tell you that the replay team has been fantastic. We are going to be getting samples sent out to all of your clinics so you can try using the products on yourself and getting your patients started on getting better. Again, Taylor is here for you, and that's why we try to find the best partners, world-class partners to give world-class results to our patients. Join us next week. We're going to talk about driving excellence with in-office wound care with one of our other vendors, Total Ancillary. And I look forward to getting the replay team back again in a few months, and we'll talk again to everybody. And we'll get all the information from their marketing team, and we'll be sending information out to you. And actually, I'll just put Marcus's email address right on the screen. He's faster than I am. We're going to get everything out to you, everything that you need. This is a partnership that we want to see grow. We want to offer alternatives to our patients, and we also want to add something to the bottom line at the practices. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight and taking time out of your busy schedule. And I look forward to speaking to y'all again. Have a good night, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.